So we've had a horrible mask and ruined manuscript, so we thought we'd go for something a little bit lighter. This is a picture of Anthony Burgess and his pet dog. A photograph taken in Chiswick in London, and it shows Burgess with his border collie, Haji. And Anthony Burgess fondly remembers Haji as, quote, crafty, disobedient, and ignorant of the sexual life, except in perverted forms peculiar to himself. I thought this was going to be nice. His first wife, Lynn, was fond of cats. In 1946, got a Siamese cat named Large after a character in Horace's Odes. And Burgess says she, quote, attached herself like a limpet to my wife and decided to hate me. In Burgess's life, he owned 25 cats, a rooster named Regulus, a turtle, an otter that whistled like a train when he wanted food, a goat, another dog, possibly called Suki, a big black rabbit, excuse me, a hedgehog, I'm allergic to rabbits, a hedgehog and a minor bird. Burgess's last known pet in the 1980s in Monaco was a cat named Bruce. This is You're Right Pets, music by Hugh Morris and words by Georgia Affonso.
Small boy found a cat when his mum wasn't home. After school, he'd been sitting alone on the swings trying to win at Ninja King when some kid showed. He kept his eyes glued to his phone. Hey Lona, what makes that? Small boy didn't answer, didn't glance up, he kept quiet, stared down, but they didn't stop and the other boys were laughing. Don't you have any friends? Little Lona, little Larry, what's that shit you're wearing? Bet he stole it. And he started to glare, couldn't help himself, stood up. Mum, Dad got it, me swear. It was the worst thing he could have done. Now they knew that he cared and he knew that he'd slipped up. The kid flipped up the phone up out of his hands and it smacked down, cracked down on the ground. The kid shrieked and his eyes pricked and his face went redder and his eyes felt wetter and they shouted, cry baby, cry baby. Old biddies shook their heads as small boys shouted and sweared, picked the phone off the floor and lobbed it hard at a hedge. He heard a yowl, then another, then another. Small boy stepped over tentatively as he pulled branches back to find a black cat upset and dizzy. She was black with a white patch on her left back paw, sore spot on her skull. She was small and scrawny and smelly and curious and terrified at the Samsung 8 that had entered her territory. Sorry, he said, and she yowled again. Small boy put her in his parka and carried her home. He let himself in and she followed through, going straight to the room where she knew there'd be food. Suppose you can stay for a bit, he said, pulling himself onto the ledge, found the tuna can, cut his finger wedging it open, shouted blue murder, but the cat unperturbed went straight for the fish. Wait, it might hurt you. He poured it into a dish. When his mum got home, Small boy used his best voice. His choice of words were careful but belligerent as he reminded her consistently that she had a dog, ma'am. Didn't you say that, ma'am? Didn't you say you had a dog, ma'am? Didn't you say a dog when you were young? When you said that? Didn't you say that, ma'am? He watched her waver, watched her shoulders lift to a shrug, watched her lips quiver as she sneezed. Once Then again, then into a fit as her nose ran, she battered him and the cat away. "Get her out!" she sprayed, eyes red, skin itching. "It's a manky stray!" "Sorry," small boy said, for the second time that day. At school, small boy drew cat after cat after cat. "What's that?" asked his helper about the cut on his hand. But small boy wouldn't talk. Wished she'd stop, all these questions were boring. Wanted her to just look at his drawing, but she wouldn't ignore him. Eventually he had to tell her about the cat that he'd found when his mum wasn't home. At the end of the day, the teacher scowled at Mum, and Mum scowled at the teacher, and the boy scowled at both of them, and shouting started, and small boy ran, and the shouting started to follow him, so small boy ran faster and faster and faster. The small boy found the cat at the back door. Red Eye saw from the wind. He let her in, not caring about what his mum would say, opened the tuna tin, careful this time, put down a dish and sat stroking the cat on the floor. That's where Mum found him, and her heart gave in. Went to the chemist, got some tablets, and tried not to mind the scratch in her throat and the wheezing when that furry so-and-so sat near her, because that small boy's smile was dearer than any day without sneezing. Small boy and the cat went everywhere together, or everywhere a cat and boy can go together. To the park and down the alleys, in the streets and on the walls, and at night at his feet she would fall asleep and purr. Even as the boy got bigger, as small boys grow tall, the cat still followed him wall to wall, and he still patted her on her head when he got in, still treated her with fish in a tin, still wanted her at the foot of the bed as the light grew dim. But as boys grow old, so do cats. And as she started to slow down, some of her 9 lives flashed before his eyes. There was the time she got knocked by a kid on a bike, he'd bandaged her paw tight, the time she stopped eating and peed on the bed he was asleep in, and he knew something weren't right. The lady 3 doors down he knew was a vet. He could see in her eyes before he heard what she said. His mum said, it was a good thing he learnt about death, said it was one of the real reasons most kids were given a pet. So he held the cat close as she drifted away, wished he knew how he could help her to stay, but he knew that was for him and not for her, and that wasn't okay. The next day, the small boy dug a small space, found the place where he'd first met the cat, and he prayed as he laid her down, wondering if he'd ever feel the same. Out of nowhere, a ball hit him, smack in the face. "Sorry mate, you all right?" he heard a boy say, and he took the outstretched hand and then the offer to play, and as he kicked the ball around, it still wasn't okay. It wasn't the same, but it was something good in a way. And as he grew up, he learned that the change could mean pain, but it could also mean finding a new set of mates. So he kept his eyes open and he felt less alone than the boy who found a cat when his mum wasn't home.